Hi, and welcome back to the live book launch for Cracking the Code to Success, where all day today we have taken some of the co-authors of this brand new book and had them share their wisdom to help you crack your own code to success. And my next guest is really going to help you in a very, very strong way, because we're going to share how you can be the manager that people won't leave. How to become a leader, how to play to your strengths, how to be someone that everyone is magnetically attracted to and want to perform their best in front of. And at a time when so many organizations are scampering and trying to find the right people, you're going to be the organization that people flourish to, that they are attracted to, that there's a magnetic attraction, and it's all because of what we're going to talk about here with my next guest, who is one of the co-authors of Cracking the Code to Success. My next guest has a long and successful history of making a difference wherever he's been. He's held a number of senior level positions in the military and private sector organizations. He's profitably managed and grown business units, including 2 de novo regional offices. Did I say that right? De novo, awesome. As well as having successfully led the turnaround of a troubled business unit. He is now a Gallup certified strengths and workforce solutions consultant, as well as a nationally certified trainer in behavioral-based interviewing to ensure quality hires, and a trained manager in how to keep and get quality people. This is not a session that you are going to want to miss. Please welcome my good friend and the author of Cracking the Code to Success, Jan Makela. How you doing, my friend?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, welcome to Orlando. It's a fun day, right?
It is.
The book came out today. We're going to teach
Yep.
some people some fun stuff. I mean, there's worse stuff to do, right?
Exactly right.
I love it. Talk to me a little bit about, first, let's talk a little bit about the book. Is this your first book? Have you written a book before?
It is my first book, but I've traveled the country doing this seminar around the country for being the manager people won't leave. And at the end of the seminar, they spend a whole day with me. And people come up and said, you got to write a book. You got to write a book. And so finally stuck in my head, and I said, I think I'll write a book.
So why is now the right time? Why is the time that people need to understand that they need to be the manager that people won't leave?
When I do the seminar on being a manager people won't leave, I start out with it. I said, how many of you were really good at something and you got promoted to be a manager? And they sent you to management school to learn some of this stuff, and right? And they all said, no. And so, I said, you got no training, but yet you're responsible for the human capital of the organization. You know, everybody says, it's the people that make the difference,
right.
But they didn't train the managers in how to make a difference with the people. And so that's was always in the back of my head about the time to do it. And with today's economy and the changing in the workforce, for example, the Y generation, the millennials, in another 5 years will be the dominant generation in the workforce. And what they want is not what other generations
Right, Gen X and the baby boomers and the people retiring right now is completely different.
Yes, and so managers need to understand that you can't, one size fits nobody.
Yeah.
And so you have to be true to yourself, have a vision of what it is you want, and then help your people, and they'll help you.
So do you believe that one of the biggest problems facing organizations right now is it because the managers don't have the skill? Is it because they don't have the education? What's the big?
It's mostly skills.
Okay.
And when I can take a manager who's never been into college, I can take somebody who's got a PhD. I've worked with physicians, and physicians are no different than somebody when managing people than somebody who doesn't have an advanced degree. And it's a skill set that you learn, and you practice, and you get better at, and you keep it in the back of your head of what it is that you want, and have a vision for it, and then share that with the people, and they'll get on board with it.
Yeah, you see, it's a difference of maybe IQ versus EQ. Is
Exactly.
that I'm smart at what I do, right? If I'm a physician, I know how to operate on you, but I don't know how to train Susie, the girl at the front desk, how to be a good employee, because I'm good at my skill set, not the people skill set.
Correct.
And so that's a gap that we're going to hope to fill today just a little bit. And so before we jump into that, I want to talk about why you're uniquely skilled to kind of talk about this. And you've had an incredible journey, lots of companies you've worked for and helped. Tell me a little bit about the Jan story.
The Jan story started when I was back in the military, and as a company commander in the Army, when I walked in a room, you stood up. I had position power, and when you were a screw up, we had a very short conversation. But I didn't really enjoy managing people, and I moved back to the West Coast and living where I wanted and doing what I wanted. But the organization I worked with kept coming to me every year and say, "We want you, come back to be a manager." And I turned it down several times, but then I had the opportunity. They said, "We really want you to come, and if we do come, we'll move you to your wife's hometown." And Baltimore, Washington area. And so we moved back to the Baltimore, Washington area, and I took over a group that was not going anywhere, and I was told to fix it. And
So you're in a really good position to win.
Yeah,
That's
right.
what you're saying. Yeah.
Performance is going this way.
Yeah.
And that first year, I had 6 of the people who reported to me left the organization. And people who leave organizations, number one reason is manager supervisor. So these people fundamentally left me. So I've got vacancies, performance is going nowhere, and at the end, I'm working 70 hours a week, and nothing's getting better. And then I got a mentor who said, Jen, you need to figure out what it is that you want. And he said, because if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there. And so he and I sat down and I wrote it out, and I actually carried it with me today, what I wanted. And it's my vision of how I was going to work with people. And I shared it with the people I work with. And over time, through the things that are in the chapter in the book, turned it around, and it became one of the best business units in the organization. I was asked, I was recognized to go to Gallup in the late 90s because I was interviewed for the book First Break All the Rules, and it was top decile managers in America. And so Gallup then taught me about what really great managers do and how they look at things differently. And so through that, my own learning and so forth, got to be the place where I've turned around a lot of groups and a lot of business units and so forth, but it was always through the people. And I have people who I've worked with in the past still keep in contact with me today and say, hey, if you ever get an opening or if you're ever coming back, give me a call. And so that's exactly right, because they want to do quality work and they want to be where all the good stuff is.
Yeah, one thing that you and I talked about as we were putting this together over the last few weeks is everyone says that we care about our people, we put people first, and they say that publicly, but then internally, it never happens. It never happens,
correct.
Right? They're not actually, the actions don't match the conversation.
Yeah, and the people see it. You can walk down the hall and you can just see that that people aren't engaged, and what the organization says and what they actually do are two different things.
Now, what was interesting, you said it, and you said it kind of really quick in passing, and I don't want people to skip it. When you first were brought into this to turn this company around, you saw a lot of people leaving.
Yes.
And you noticed that people were leaving not necessarily because of the pay, not necessarily because of the work that they were doing. They were leaving because of management. Yeah. That's not usually what we think of. We think like, oh, you're not paying me right, or I'm going to go get a better salary. But it's how you make them feel.
Correct.
Which is why they leave.
They leave you before they leave. I've read hundreds and hundreds of exit interviews, and money is never in the top 5 of why people leave organizations. And it's usually the manager is why people, they'll say, hey, Greg, I'm going down the street for $1,000, whatever. Right. But if you read the exit interview, they left the manager. So,
wow. And that's powerful, and that kind of hits you right in the gut.
Yeah,
right?
if you're that,
it's a gut check for the manager.
Yeah, and I've had those conversations with managers who said, I'm losing people left and right. And I say, and so we start working on it, and they realize that there's things that they should be doing differently. Yeah. And when they come to that point, the aha moment, they turn around.
Yeah. So let's start to dig into this and talk about how you can become that manager that people won't leave, how you can be that person that attracts people into your organization as opposed to repels them. And you say that a lot of us, especially as managers, as leaders, we're stuck in roles that don't allow us to utilize our strengths.
Correct.
We use our strengths to get to this position of power.
Right.
Again, we were really good at our skill, the thing that we do. We were great at sales, and now we're a sales manager.
Right.
Well, I'm really good at selling. I'm not a good manager of salespeople. So talk to me about this concept that we're not using our strengths anymore.
It's one of the things I picked up when I wrote what it is that I wanted. And when I went out and I went out to Gallup and I was sitting with them, their psychologist, and they said, Jen, do you have it written down of what it is that you want in your vision or in your mission? And I said, yeah, I have it right here. And she looked at it, the psychologist, she said, those are your strengths are in there. And when I've gone to their Clifton Strength Finders, those things reappear. And so one of the things is to learn what your strengths are, and then don't try to be who you're not. Play from your strengths. And once you identify what your natural talents are, take advantage. I can give you an example. Let's say it's 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you look at your watch and you say, wow, where'd today go? Well, you're working in an area that you enjoy, and it's easy for you, and it's a strength. If you look at your watch at 3 and you say, is this day never going to get over?
Yeah, let's get some coffee and Red Bull for everybody in the office.
You're not probably in an area of your strengths. Right. And it's not something you do well. You're not easy for you to do. And so find ways to work from your strengths.
So how does that, as a manager, I can see that. How does that affect the team, your employees, the people that you lead? How does that affect them if I'm not playing to my strengths?
Right. What I've learned and what I have done is that I take time and we find out what you're really good at. And I work with you individually. I say, hey, Greg, what do you like going on today? And and so I'll try to set you up to do more of that. And I ask you, what can I do to make your job easier? And that's a demonstration of what is it that you need to make your job easier, but it's also a demonstration I care about you as a person.
Yeah. So we go through this process, the things that you've put together to help people identify their strengths. So now I'm a manager, right? I'm leading these people. I'm an executive at the company, whatever the case is. And I realized that, yeah, I was a great salesperson. I'm a terrible people manager.
Right.
Uh-oh.
Right.
What happens there? Like, how do we create that next step?
The problem is when you're not working from your strength of areas and you're letting somebody else's vision or somebody else's way, doing it your boss's way. Your boss got successful doing it his way, and therefore you copy that. And it tends not to work for you because you're not your boss from a strength side. So once you try to do what you're not, you're going to fall flat on your face. And that's the hard part for a lot of managers to do, is you can't emulate somebody else's strengths and say, well, I'll give you an example. There's 34 themes or strengths that people can have, and when I've done work with the military, the company commanders get all excited because command is not in their top 5. Well, how can I be a commander if command's not in my top 5? Well, when I was company commander and did well, command's not in my top 15. So I didn't worry about what I didn't have. I learned to figure out what I did have and make that work for me. And so you work from the strength perspective of what it is that you're good at, what you're naturally good at, and don't worry about what you aren't. There are other people around you who are good at what you aren't good at. Let them do that stuff.
Exactly. That's a part of being in management, right? You can delegate, you can outsource, you can use other people to make your strengths more powerful and supplement for your weaknesses. Right. Again, we've talked about it, that a lot of companies have this, yes, we put our people first, we take care of our team, and they don't actually do it. A company that actually does take care of their people in a great way is Google. You were telling me this example as we were preparing the materials for today. What does Google do to take care of their people?
Google managers, if you're a manager at Google, or before you become a manager, there's 8 things that you have to hit or be able to do. And managing your team from a perspective of technological, being a good widget maker is only 1/8 of it. Being a good coach instead of a boss. They're expected to be coaches. Help me, Greg, with my career. Help me get this accomplished. Help me along the way. And then they have the empowerment. Greg, here's how I want you to accomplish it. How you do it is up to you.
Yeah.
And then they have, every manager at Google has to care about the people that report to them, both professionally and personally. And they worry about productivity over activity. They're expected to be a good communicator. Help me with my career, my development. And those are most of the things that being a manager at Google expects you to do as part of your job function. And every manager at Google is trained on, and you don't get promoted until that stuff is in place. And they have to have that vision and mission. Why does my department, whatever exist? And it's not about money, because that's a result.
Yeah.
Why do we exist? What do we bring to the dance? What are we doing, make the organization better?
So I see it now. There's someone watching this, and they're like, that's good for Google.
Yeah.
I'm not Google.
I know.
Right? And so how do we learn from them? And Google's not the only example. No. They're a great example.
Facebook, Accenture, there's myriad of them.
Okay, cool. I'm not Facebook. I'm not Accenture. So how do you start to have this conversation? How can we do what Google does, what Facebook does, what Accenture does? How do we start to have that culture? And it might be, maybe it starts with culture, it starts with strength, it starts with a lot of those things, right?
It does. You start with what is it that you want? What is you want your department, your group, your team to look like? And how do you want them to function? Sometime in the future when it's all going well for you, what does that look like for you? But what's in it for them when they do that? One of mine was, my vision is I expected all my people to perform above the standard of the organization. And you say, well, why isn't just being standard good enough? And I went back to them and I said, but when you're above the standard, that's where all the good stuff is. Promotions, recognition, all money, all those things. Yeah. And they all said, that makes sense. And so I had fine. Yeah, exactly. And so there has to be something in it for the employee. What's in it for them? So when I thought about what it is, I always put my needs second and thought about what are their needs first, and then they always brought me along the way.
I want to talk a little bit about this. So Google invests in the manager.
Yes.
They invest in training that manager, they invest in their mindset, they invest in making them a real leader. Is the payoff worth the investment?
Yes. You look at their retention rate, they have a very low turnover rate. There's a lot of reasons for that other than just the manager. I mean, it's a wonderful place to work, but they have high expectations.
Right.
But don't doubt that.
You're not messing up if someone goes for a Google search and it messes up. Yeah, exactly.
And so, you can play, take a nap at 2 in the afternoon or play, racquetball, but you better, but they have a high expectation of performance.
Yeah, and so that trickles down though, but now the employee wants to perform.
Exactly.
And they want to perform for the manager because they want the manager to look good,
and
right?
And perform for themselves. And they have a high,
Right.
and which I'm a big fan of, is having transparency. Everybody sees how the unit, the team, the organization has worked. In my past lives, I sent out scorecards to everybody. They saw how everybody was doing every month, and so people knew how they were doing, and I handwrote notes to them for recognition that when they overachieved, and they kept those letters. I've had them come back to me years later and say, "I kept your note." You know,
Yeah.
And so.
So how do we take the things that the steps that you just shared with Google, with the cool stuff that they're doing, the investment they're making in their managers and in this entire process, how does that relate to strengths?
Okay. When you start working from your strengths, you first of all identify what it is your strengths are, and you take the Clifton Strength Finder survey, and you'll get your top 5. And then from there, you go. You can get a strength coach to help you, but you can look at yourself, and when you read your strength report, you'll see. When you read it, you'll say, "That's me." You'll actually see and have recognition. There'll be phrases in there that you'll say, "That's me." And so you say, "Wow, that is really something that I do, and I do well." So, and then can I combine that with some of my other strengths and make it really rock? 1 + 1 is actually 3. Hydrogen plus oxygen gives you water. So it's combining your strengths, called theme dynamics, and working from an area of true strengths. And having your team do the same thing as well. Find what their good seat on the bus is, if you will, and learn more from their strengths.
So we're going to spend a lot of the rest of the time that we have together talking about this and playing to our strengths and things of that nature. I want to talk about, you said it was the Clifton Strength Finder?
Clifton Strength Finder.
So talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, is this like a 7,000 question test that's going to take 3 weeks?
No, you can go on, if you've got 30 minutes, you can crank it out. Okay, you go on Amazon, whatever, and you get the book, and in the back, and it'll be a code that comes with the book, and you enter the code, and there's 176 paired questions that takes you about 20 seconds to do for each question, so they're less about 30 minutes.
Okay.
And then at the end, it kicks you out a very personalized report to you that says, this
Here's
is
what
you.
your strengths are.
Right,
This
right.
is, yeah.
Give you an example. My number 1 is maximizer. I try to make things better. And in the report about me, it says, you're probably reading 2 books at the same time. And in fact, I was. I have a beach read and a business read.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So there's an example of what I was actually doing that played one of my strengths. So I said, okay, I know that about myself, so how do I use more of that? Okay?
Do you believe that most people don't know what their strengths are? Or they're not doing the things that are their
They don't
strengths?
know what their strengths are because they've never had anybody ever show them or spent the time with them. I've had hundreds of people I've private clients who call me and say, hey, spend some time with my personal strengths. And I start out with, were you surprised? And they say, I was surprised how on target it was. That it really spoke to who I am, or what you value, and because it talks about value and beliefs of what it is that you and your heart really want.
So does it give them clarity? Gives them maybe that aha moment, like, I usually am fired up when I'm doing these things. When you are maximizing situations, when you're making situations better, you're like, that's when it is like, holy smokes, it's 5 o'clock already. Is that kind of what happens when you take these tests?
Yep. I have a lady who I'm working with currently who is not working in her strengths, and she got her strength assessment. She needs to have, for her own well-being and how she works best, she needs time to make sure she's not making mistakes. And she's in a fast-paced environment. She struggles in that fast-paced environment. And actually her best thing that she could do is get out of that role. Because she's in a role that she's never really going to be happy in.
And
she
firing at her all the time.
It's not her world.
Yeah.
And so when she recognized, she said, I'm in the wrong job. And I said, yeah, you really are. You're not in the wrong organization. You're just in the wrong, that particular function. And if she had that conversation with her manager, he could probably, or she could probably help correct them to something that's more in their strength zone.
Yeah. So step 1 in this entire process, in order to be the manager that people won't leave, is you have to discover your strengths.
You should, or the managers can help you. A good manager can help by observing what you do well. They can figure it out. But they start out also with the good managers. They share what it is that I want, the vision, the mission of the group, the team. Then I establish the expectations. Here's what we expect. And I sit with you and I say, Greg, what do you expect of me as your manager? And then you'll hem and haw about that, but you'll finally verb up some stuff. And then I'll say, well, I'll do all those things for you. And then I say, what do you want me, what should I expect of you? And then you're going, huh? And then we come to what's called mutual expectations. This is called leveling the playing field. And so we have a working relationship based on our expectations of each other. And so that's a start. And then coaching them along the way, catching them and doing it right, Those
Yeah.
are the kind of things that are really, really important. Most organizations don't know how to celebrate, and I say, when you knock it out of the park, what do? You go on to the next big thing, right?
Just pat them on the back,
Back
and
in the
say,
end,
let's do it again tomorrow.
and so I say, let's stop, celebrate the good thing that we did, because people want to remember, emotionally remember what they did well.
Yeah.
And then catching them doing it right, they'll do more of it.
Yeah, I like that. So understanding what you want, having that conversation, a word you mentioned earlier, transparency,
Yeah.
right? So what do you expect from me? What do I expect from you?
Yes.
Having that kind of that mutual expectation from each other.
Correct.
Now, that doesn't mean that every day is going to be peaches and roses and rainbows
Absolutely
and
not.
unicorns,
No.
but at least I have an expectation of what I expect from you. You have
Right.
one from me.
Yeah.
And if I can put you in a role where you are doing the things that you should be
You
doing,
do best. Yeah.
then you should be meeting the expectations.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
And so we work it through, and I give you the opportunity to fail. I tell every one of my new hires, I expect you to fail, because that's how we learn, through failure.
Yeah.
And so but we don't punish learners. And so I give you an assignment. If you blow it up, let's get up and make it right and do it
Yeah.
all over again. So,
yeah. But let's fix it.
Exactly. Understand what went wrong and let's fix it.
Right. Let's make it better in the future. So, as we keep talking about these strengths, you have this this really cool graphic that just came up, the strengths on the bus, which is really cool. And guys, if you want to bring that full screen really quickly, Jan, walk us through what we're looking at here and what it means to us.
As it says, the best teams know, understand how to call out the strength of the people around them. What's your unique contribution, and what your team members offer? So when we do this as a team, everybody knows their strengths. They say, here's what I bring to the dance, but here's what I need from the group.
Yeah.
And so the managers are sitting there watching, oh, I didn't know that Greg really needs time to think, or needs that time, but he brings this wonderful, wonderful good stuff to the dance, right? And so when the managers hear that and see that from their people talking in an honest, open dialogue, magic starts to come together.
Is there something to, not even from a management level, but just we're both team members, and I know that Jan's good at this, and you know that I'm good at this. Does that help us?
Yeah, absolutely.
As well?
I can say, Greg, I'm really good at PowerPoint. Can I help you with that thing? And you say, yeah. Well, when we communicate there, now we've done something, building a relationship. We're building trust amongst each other, and so trust is one of the cornerstones of why organizations really rock. Is they have a trust for each other in the group or the team.
Yeah, I love that you get the little stop sign there that says everyone has a seat.
Yeah.
Right? So everyone has a role to play.
Yeah.
And I know sometimes, like, I'm in a very startup environment where sometimes I wear 72 hats in a day.
Yeah.
But as your organization grows, like, I want you to be the best in the world at X.
Yeah.
And I want you to be best in the world at Y. And that way, if you're each playing your role, well, then the bus is going to move.
Exactly right.
Right?
Exactly right. And everybody enjoys the ride.
Which is really, really powerful. We got another one, guys. Keep this one full screen as well. So we have 4 different boxes here.
Yep.
Talk to me about what these are and what they mean to us.
When you take the Strength Finder survey, you will find that you may have different themes in each one of these they're called domains: executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And you will see that there are different focuses that you have under these. You will not have one, and all of them won't be in one. You'll have them spread across.
Right.
But you have some dominant ones that'll come out. For my example, my daughter has a very high woo. Woo is she can get on a bus or get in an elevator, and by the time you get 2 floors up, she'll know your life story. That's her woo. She's the person that sits down next on the airplane. Hey, how are you, Greg? And she builds relationship with people right out of the chute. Right. And so.
So let's put her in a position where she can create relationships for our organization.
I said I need somebody to go out and talk to strangers who, in a meet and greet.
Yeah, let's get her out of the trade show. Let's get her out of here.
And she does wonderful in that role.
But put her in a different role, right? Where maybe it's the opposite of that.
You put her over here,
like analytical.
I mean, she's a wonderful writer and those kinds of things. But the other side of it, it's not her. She can do it. But it takes her time, and it's not as enjoyable as over here.
Right, and even so, you shared yours earlier, so you're the maximizer, and that's the influencing piece as well. And when you're doing that, again, you're firing on all cylinders, and if you're doing something that's polar opposite of that, it's not that you can't do it, but you're not going to be, in that flow state. You're not going to be firing on all cylinders.
Right. For example, I also have individualization and positivity, and I have self-assurance. So I would say to you, Greg, on the first day you come to work with me, Greg, I'm glad to have you here. I'm really pleased to have you on our team. You have any issues, whatever, let me know. Greg, understand this. I'm not going to let you fail. And when I say that to you, that's my self-assurance, my individualization, positivity coming out. And that's actually words I've said to people.
Right.
Right. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so when I say to somebody on day one, I'm not going to let you fail.
That's powerful.
But it's also puts, now I've got to walk the talk, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and it's also because you found your strengths, it's true.
Yes.
It's not phony baloney. You went to a
Exactly.
management seminar
Exactly.
last week and you're reading off the quote cards.
Right, exactly right. It's very, very true. And people recognize it if you're trying to be phony or who you're not. It comes out very quickly.
Yeah.
And so when people learn to accept who you're good at, what you're good at, and work from that strength, it goes a lot better for you.
Yeah, exactly. So very powerful. Again, it was the Clifton Strength Finder.
2.0.
And that's what gets you the results for
Correct.
what we're looking at right here, right now, today. So make sure you take that next step. We have one more here, the strength domains.
Yes.
And this is kind of taking what we just talked about just a little deeper. So first we have the kind of the thinking domain.
Right, and these are the people like the lady who I said needed time.
Okay.
This is her domain. She needs time to think, help analyze information, get her value. She's innovative, possibility. She gives alternative. She thinks about the future. We could do this a different way, but she needs time for that to come to fruition.
Yeah.
What she needs from you is knowledge of the vision. Why are we here? And freedom to think, imagine what and why. Those are all time bound.
Yeah.
I need time for that to occur.
Right. And so if you need her to reply to emails in 18 seconds and she's got text going off and she's got Slack open and she's got like,
doesn't work.
and she's not going to, you're not putting her in a place to succeed.
Correct. Right. Absolutely right. You want to switch seats? You can do it.
Hey, I'm just picking up what you're putting down. So we have this thinker, right? And so the next thing that we have in the strength domains is the executor.
Right. They know how to organize, meet a goal, make things happen. They're the people who can take that idea that she can think of and say,
Right.
here's how we can make this work. This is how we can actually get it done by 5 o'clock.
Right.
Right. And so these people, when you put them together, this person can do what this person can think of.
Right.
I get things done. Reality, goals, process, they're loyal, and they have steps. They need practical step by step and freedom to complete. And they will execute. They will get it done.
So give them the IKEA furniture,
Sure,
and they will put it together for you.
Exactly right. You nail it. And they will get it done. They'll spend all night. The stamina comes out, and they'll spend all night putting the kids' bicycle together.
Exactly. So, which the world needs a lot of that, right? Because you have the thinker, you have this person who's now executing on these ideas. You have the third strength domain here, which is relationships.
They know how to build strong relationships, and they can hold a team together and make it better than the sum of their parts. They're good at connecting, inviting, listening, accepting, building, and they're fun to work with. They need authenticity, relationships, encouragement, non-judgmental values, and so forth. I have a sister-in-law who is primarily in this domain, and empathy is one of her top strengths. And I mean, she does. Her worst day is having to fire somebody, and because that is just not her. But she has to do it. She doesn't. Nobody enjoys it. But I mean, it's next to. She'd rather go to the dentist than have to do that.
Right.
But she always comes to party or family functions. Said, "How are you? Is everything going well?" She's the first one to be there to help set up those kinds of things. That's her empathy and side coming out.
Yeah, and we need those people on the team too.
Yeah, because they're the ones that go behind you and say, Greg's a great guy. When we get to know him, he's really going to make this thing better. They're making pulling it together, the team together for you behind the scenes.
And then we got the fourth piece, which is the influencer.
Right. They know how to make charge, speak up, and make sure things the team is heard. Conviction, igniting, enrolling, energizing. If nobody else makes a decision, they'll say, "This meeting should be starting now."
Yeah.
Right.
Let's get it going.
Let's get it going. And so they will drive the agenda if you don't. They need verbal processing, a connection with a cause. Why are we here? And when they connect with that cause and they say, we're going to get this done. We believe in this. And they will drive, because of the influence they have with the group, they can drive a group forward.
I want to talk a little bit about this, and we're going to spend a second on this. Is one necessarily better than another? No. So talk to me about how that works.
Okay. I have nothing over here in this thinking domain.
You don't. This is you,
Yeah, and nothing there. And my last corporate role, I was in an area that required a lot of this. We were thinking 18 months out. I go into meetings with my boss, and he could draw on a wall from a blank board, and he can make this beautiful plan out. And I'm sitting there, I said, I got nothing.
Because you're thinking about today and tomorrow.
Because I can execute and I can influence.
Right.
At the end of it, I would say to Eric, I said, Eric, here's how we can make it better, and this is how we can make it work. And he said, that's why you're in the room.
Yeah.
Because I was the only one in his team who could do what all the other people
Right,
couldn't do.
so he would dream it up on the board, and then you were the guy that said, all right, here's step by step, here's what we're doing tomorrow, here's what we're doing next week, here's the team I
Here's
need.
how to make a meeting, here's the people we have to get on our side, those kinds of things.
Yeah.
So nobody cared that I wasn't good at one aspect of it. Nobody could care less.
Yeah.
And you worked from what I was good at, and that was why I was in the room, because they recognized I had what nobody else could do.
Yeah, and again, it's putting the pieces together, right? It's the puzzle, it's the jigsaw puzzle. You know, like Tesla doesn't need 4,000 Elon Musks running around.
Right.
They need Elon Musk to be the thinker, but now I need a lot of people
Build it with the
implementing and
executed,
influencing and
influencing,
networking on that whole side, right? Is that
correct?
And so, is this happen in the hiring stage? Does this happen in the developmental stage? Where does this happen for organizations?
It starts at all levels. Like when hiring, I look at my team. Let's just say I had 10 people, but I didn't have a thinker. I didn't. I had people who execute. I had people who could do all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But I have nobody over here.
Right.
I want somebody over from that box. So when I'm interviewing, I'm looking for people who have a skill sets by the questions I ask them through the behavioral-based interviewing piece of, if you have this, and if you can do that, now you have value not only to me but to the team.
Yeah. So I see it when you need a role, right? What if I already got people in place and they're in the wrong place? So there's two pieces of it, right? I got 100 employees and 30 of them are in the wrong place. If I'm just starting, now I can have people take the test as I'm hiring to make sure I get my salespeople, they have the right strengths, my engineers have the right strengths, but I already got some people.
I know, and I've been in that role, and so you take and you figure out what they're good at, and you say, how can we modify their job function, and sometimes you can't, but if they're aware, then you say, can I get help from Greg? Can I get help from Dan? Somebody else to help me in this particular role. So we look for people that can support you. I'm not about firing people. If we can't, some people, they're just in the wrong job.
Right.
It's called job fit. And you try to find another role for them in the organization, but sometimes that's just not possible. And so then they're, unfortunately, they're let go, but it's not because they're bad people. It's because they're...
Well, I'm not going to allow you can't succeed in the roles that I have for you.
Right, and so exactly, and so tell me that up front, and it says, Jen, this role isn't really for you because of, whatever it is, and if I know my own strengths, I can recognize that.
Yeah,
right.
Very, very...
And people will respond to that. They'll say, I love being with you, Greg, but this is just not an organization for me.
Right.
Right.
So for someone who hasn't actually been playing to their strengths, they've been tasked with things where they're making you think, and you're like, oh man, I'm not a thinker. I want to execute. I'm not the thinker.
Right.
How do I help you to now regain your strengths? So we found a role for you. Now you're going to be my executor, my implementer, whatever that looks like. How do I, as a manager, help you to see your strengths? And I guess it goes back to some of what we talked about earlier, the what you want and the expectations. But how do I actually guide you?
I would say to you, when you come in the morning, I'd say, Greg, what's your best day at work look like? What are you doing best? What do you enjoy doing best? And then you say, I really like this filming thing. I know it's long days, but man, the day flies by for me. I really enjoy that. And so, okay, we're going to see if I can have more time for you doing this particular function. So over the course of time, we start molding the job just a little bit differently, so you're playing more time to your strengths. And you start looking for people with those strengths and saying, you're really good at that. Let you have more time doing this piece. And so we start rewriting job descriptions, if you will, over the course of time, that people are now working from their strengths perspective.
Powerful question. I'm going to repeat it because I think this is an exercise that you can probably do with your team. This is an exercise you can do tomorrow at the morning meeting, next week when you bring everybody together. Make your team write down the answer to what's your best day of work look like. Have them describe it. When do they come in? What are they working on? What projects are they doing? What does their task list look like? And then maybe even a not to do list. What do they not? What does my worst day of work look like? And it's for that the woman you were describing earlier. It's the emails and the fires and the constant this. It probably drives her crazy. But what does your best day look like? Thinking, sitting back, organizing, whatever it is.
Yeah. And when people tell you that, well, then how do I let you do more of that? Because you're already doing it in some portion of your role already, right?
Yeah.
And the other portion of it is catching people doing it well. And when I catch you doing it well, you want to do more of it. Because I come out and say, great job, you're knocking it out of the park, with the filming. And so you say, wow, I got recognition and he knows I'm doing a great job at this.
Yeah.
I like that. I think I want to do more. So,
Yeah.
So positive feedback grows, negative feedback stifles.
Ooh, I like that.
And it's that is 50 years old of data. And as I tell people when I work in organizations, if your organizations are not giving positive feedback to your people, your organization is going nowhere. Because positive feedback grows, negative feedback stifles.
So as we're starting to wrap up here, and we're going to get to some live questions from you guys in just a second. Give me a story. Give me someone that you've worked with. Give me a cool organization that you came in and they really weren't playing to their strengths, where you saw that management had put people in the wrong roles. Maybe they grew too fast, so they were just hiring, left and right. I mean, there's times, right, where you're just like, grab a warm body, go man the phones. But give me a story of someone that you've really helped. They've identified this. They saw these different strength domains. They saw the stuff on the last slide, and you've helped them to really grow. That's not named Google or Facebook or Accenture or any of those fun guys.
Numerous years ago, I was asked to relocate to Virginia and to take over a struggling business unit of the state of Virginia and surrounding geography. And when I took this assignment, I was asked to do it, and my then boss, he said, "Oh, by the way, when you get there, fire Mike, because Mike's the problem child. Fire Mike."
Yeah.
And so I
great,
followed.
thanks, boss. Great first day.
Exactly. And being my self-assurances there, I said, "Okay, boss," but I never fired Mike, because I have confidence in myself that I want to know what's going on with Mike. So when I first got there, he was one of the first people I met, and I sat down and I said, "Let's you and I go to breakfast," and we talked for 2 hours. And he had not gotten along with the previous manager, and the previous manager said, "This would all be better if Mike wasn't here." But anyway, so in talking to Mike, he said, "Here's how I work best." And he wouldn't let me do it my way. He wouldn't let, and I said, "Well," of course, I said, "Mike, do it your way." And, and I said, "Here's, the sandbox we're playing in, you're allowed." 18 months later, he was having a beer with the guy who told me to fire him, and we were the #1 performing business unit in there.
Wow.
So it was just talking to people.
Just having a real conversation.
Right, yeah. Tell me what you see, tell me what you value, tell me, and we just talked it through. And he afterwards, he used to say to me, thank you.
Yeah.
And so there's an example of real world where you do it.
It's powerful when you can identify those strengths. You can have that conversation about what does your best day look like.
Right.
And then what do you want?
Right.
And then setting expectations. Like
right.
you gave him a sandbox, right? You can't go completely out in left field,
right. Yeah.
But here's the sandbox. Do what you need to do to be successful. And it's amazing when you empower people.
Exactly.
It's empowering them rather than shackling them and chaining them.
Right. And then one of the side stories of that is that's exactly right, because he said, "You mean I don't have to come to you for permission to do this?" I said, "No, you're in charge of it. You don't have permission from me to do that function."
Yeah.
And that was like a weight off his shoulders.
Yeah.
To your point, he was empowered. I could let him, he could fail with impunity. He didn't have to call me and say, "I screwed this up," but he could fix it. So, yeah.
That's really, really cool. Now, I know there's a lot of folks watching right now, whether they're an organization, whether they're a manager themselves, they have a team. How can they work with you? In what capacity do you come in to help them do the things that we've talked about here today?
Strength-based leadership. They can get me through my email.
Yep.
They can email me directly, or they can go to my website, strengthbasedleadership.net, and they can leave me a message there, and I will get back to them, and we'll talk about what's going on in their world, be it a small team, large team. I work with for-profits, nonprofits, individuals, small groups, pretty much the whole gamut.
Yeah.
And so we set up what it is that I sit with the leaders of that group, that organization, and we talk it through and what's going on, try to figure out why it's going on, and then they work up a plan, and we work up for each people to figure out what their strengths are and work from their strengths.
Yeah, which is what we want. And if you are watching this right now and you want to be the type of organization that doesn't just talk about having a great team and being there for your people, but you actually want to live it, you want to breathe it, you want to get your team members firing, you want them in that flow state, you want them performing at their best so that you can grow your organization, Jan is the guy that you need to start working with. Please visit strengthbasedleadership.net. See how you can bring him in. Get that conversation started. Just get your toes wet and see the difference that it can make. And then once you start utilizing this stuff, once you see how Jan helps you to set expectations, once you start to see what you want from your employees, what the employees expect of your leadership team and your management team, and the results that you're going to get, your organization could look like Google. It could look like Facebook, even if you're not out in Silicon Valley. This is what he does. Reach out, send him an email and say, "Hey, Jan, here's what we got going on. Here's what we want to do. Here's what we want to accomplish." You'll reach out to them.
Absolutely.
You'll walk them through that process and how you can do that. But it starts with you doing something about it now. If this morning, you had your team meeting and you talked about being for the people, you put out a press release, you say, we're one of the top companies in this area to work with. but you're losing people. You're losing good talent to competitors. You're losing good talent to other organizations that should be staying with you. Now is the time to do something about it. Now is the time to make a change, to make a difference, to be the manager, to be the company that has the managers that people do not want to leave. Starts with you taking action today. And if nothing else, brand new book today. New book, my friend.
I know.
Not too bad.
Excited about it.
Cracking the Code to Success. Jan's in it, Brian Tracy's in it, some other amazing experts are teaching you how to crack your own code to success. Head on over to Amazon.com, grab a copy. Just came out today, hot off the press. These guys did all the hard work. Amazon's gonna do the easy work of getting it delivered to you. My friend, this has been a lot of fun.
Thank you.
A lot of good stuff. Hope people take you up on everything that we talked about. They become the company, they become the manager that people don't want to leave.
Thank you for the time.
Awesome. Thank you, my
Yeah,
friend.
right. Thank you.
Good stuff.